lot of familiar faces out in the crowd. So more or less today I'm not here to speak about gardening, more about our current state of cannabis in Hawaii and where we could possibly go with it. My personal thoughts are that Hawaii is in the best place it could possibly be as far as marketing Hawaii grown cannabis to the rest of the country and at some point potentially the world. You probably compare it to Kona coffee. It may not necessarily be better than Colombian coffee, but people will pay more for it because it was grown here in Hawaii. And the same will be said for cannabis. Any legal market across the country and potentially the world will have a market for Hawaii grown cannabis on their shelf. I'm telling you this because there's opportunity for a lot of people to profit from this, and not just a few like there currently is. And if we could have a small craft cannabis bill drafted, something that was friendly to the small farmer, the mom and pops, the people that have been growing cannabis since it's been illegal, risking their lives, going to jail, you guys know the trip. Those are the people that should be first in line to make any money off of cannabis. And right now we just have a few licensed dispensaries that are making money legally, which I don't have anything against the dispensaries. I just feel like there should be opportunity for the small farmer to provide their product to the dispensary, give patients a better, more options, more sun-grown cannabis, because to get a true terpene profile on cannabis, you need it to be grown in the sun. Artificial lights can grow some really nice looking stuff, but if you want to get true medicine, it needs to be grown with at least some sun. So I'm a big proponent of sun-grown cannabis, greenhouse, and natural farming. Not totally opposed to the chemical aspect. You can grow some really nice product with that too. You just need to make sure it's flushed and be a little more careful with it. But I promote organic farming and I promote small farming. But there's always going to be big farms no matter what. So we just have to make sure there's room for the small guys to make money alongside them. Compared to maybe the wine industry, you have a $7 bottle of wine at Walmart. There's a huge market for that because a lot of people can afford a $7 bottle of wine. I don't drink, but I'd imagine that it probably doesn't taste as good as the $50 bottle of wine, which there's also a market for. Take that up another notch and there's a few $100 bottles of wine. Well, cannabis is going to fall in the same categories. In my opinion at least, is that there's going to be a huge market for cheap cannabis at 7-Eleven. They'll probably have pre-rolled packs of it here in a few years, and a lot of people will buy that. I won't buy that, I'll grow my own forever, but if you don't grow your own, it'd be nice to have clean, sun-grown, small farm, low-impact farms as an option to purchase from instead of just the Marlboro cannabis or Budweiser cannabis. We don't want to see that. We want to see small firms flourish alongside those big guys because there's room for everybody. So I'm telling you this because legalization is sure to come at the federal level or the state level real soon. And I just want to make sure you don't support the first legalization bill that comes down the line. Make sure you do your research. Make sure it's not just corporatizing cannabis. And make sure it's leaving room for the small guy to make some money and provide for their families and take care of the people that have spent time in jail for the plant. I could go on and on and on, but instead of talking about growing, I'd rather grow your minds and let you think about what we can do here in Hawaii. We have a better opportunity than any other state. A lot of people can make some money and the community could have money flowing back into it. And it could be with a plant, something that's good for the earth, something that's good for us. There's no overdose risk. You guys know most of these things because you're here. But we could be making a huge impact locally in Hawaii and especially in the Puna district with just simply allowing cannabis to be grown and sold by small farms. even if it's through the current dispensary system, but ideally, when federal legalization comes down to it, we will be able to import, export. I doubt we'll be importing much cannabis to Hawaii, but we surely could have the opportunity to export a bunch. And not just countrywide, but worldwide eventually. So just imagine every shop in every state needing to have at least a few jars of Hawaii-grown cannabis on the shelf to supply that market. That's a lot of cannabis. And here in Puna, we have a lot of land. We have a lot of people that have farming skills, and we have a lot of people that just enjoy the countercultural lifestyle. That's why a lot of people live here, including myself.
In the years before events, over and over again, this stuff was actually voted in 10 years ago. And now we're still here talking about it, and now we're talking about the particulars about it. And it's, as the gentleman that gave us information on the legalities of it, I think it's incredibly important that you understand the legalities of it. There's a lot of misinformation. It'll cost you a fortune. It'll ruin your lives in some instances, as some folks can tell you. And so it's really, I think the message, if we can get a message across today, it's to get involved, really get to the people that are making laws and tell them that you know, that we're not asking you for your opinion of what you want to make these laws. We're telling you what we want these laws to be. I mean, I don't know where it is that these elected officials all of a sudden become experts. You know, when we are the experts, you are the folks that are going to be in charge of telling folks that are going to make laws that are going to impact you and your kids' lives. And it's an interesting thing, you know, like people kind of shy away from the whole kid topic. There are children here, there are folks here that have children, and it's important, I think, that there's a medicinal reason that this is being discussed. There's a medicinal reason why we are trying to get away from single, massive corporation opiates that are, I mean, who here doesn't know someone's life that is controlled by an opiate, someone's entire world that centers around their ability to continuously be fed the things that you read the labels on these packages, and the side effects are worse than what you're treating. I mean, it's just extraordinary. We're talking about a plant, we're talking about thousands of years worth of use that has been just completely put aside because it wasn't convenient in the money-making scheme. And then in the law enforcement side of this, we're talking about they're looking for ways. They are going to lose a major stream of revenue. I think it's important that you understand that. This is a major stream of revenue. So if you want to talk to somebody about how they're interpreting DWI now, ask Roth. Because that's the person who is going to be instructing police officers through their chiefs of police that if the vehicle smells like marijuana, you are under arrest for DWI. That's how it goes. And now you can fight it, you can shake your head. We have been told stories by folks that are in the throes of this now, where they have been taken to Hilo, they've been put under arrest, their driver's license was taken there. And if they wanted their driver's license back, they were going to go through the process of DWI, or DUI, whatever it is, here, in order to get their driver's license back. If you know that to be factually incorrect, we would love you to tell us. You know? And because we need information. That is what has been told to us. That they are being DWI. If your car smells like pot, you're DWI. And your license is taken, and then you're fighting it. So tell me how many people that wouldn't impact here, because our public transportation, of course, would pick up the slack of you not being able to have your car. It's incredible. I think overall, what I keep hearing every speaker say is, it's essential that you get involved. It's essential that you get involved because, let me tell you, the folks that don't want any of this, they're involved. They're involved and they're sending money. And they put people in office to make these kinds of things happen. We, as one of the speakers said, seem to all hang out and sit back and hope for the best. And it's, you know, it's not to our advantage. We're still being persecuted, we're still being prosecuted, we're still being fined. So it's essential that everyone get involved. That's what I keep hearing all of them say. Our next speaker is a gentleman that is very involved in many different ways, and he is actually introducing to the island an entire way of using the hemp side of this discussion in order to be building products and to be just an endless stream. You know, just another example of thousands of years of research already done. We don't need to start over.
Truly grateful to be here today. Truly grateful to be here. I was here as a speaker in 2017 when Uncle Billy was still here, and looking around, several familiar faces from that event as well. Truly grateful to be here with friends today that I call Ohana. First and foremost, I want to thank LHG, Uncle Sam, and everyone that's helped here, as well as the beautiful crew of this event for coming together and putting their hearts and souls into every bit of this work so much, and making sure that people can get this information, and that people can get together and be able to interact and be able to exchange this information freely as well. I'm coming first and foremost as a representative of the Silent Nation, as the Native Americans refer to it as, those who have no voice to speak up. If we look out, we can see an ocean with no voice to speak up right now. We can see a land that has no voice, and animals, plants, different species around us that are really crying out for help and really need action in this time from us. And that includes the future generations that we actually borrow this world from. Because we borrow this world that we're in right now comes from our children, but from their future. So I'm coming also as a representative of Holistic Synergy Hawaii, which is founded out of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Here in Hawaii, it's founded solely to be stewards of land, water, culture, community out of Puna. We're doing a lot of positive impact projects surrounding natural building, agricultural, horticultural, environmental solutions. We're also working on projects to steward the Lahaina here, and also be stewards of the ocean. We want to go down and actually make sure that our community is being taken care of, cleaned up after. We're cleaning up hundreds and hundreds of pounds of plastics, ocean-based plastics every month, ghost nets, you name it. We're taking what right now is looked at as a problem, and we're trying to create solutions. And that brings us back to hemp, which has been around for thousands of years. It's actually known as the first domesticated agricultural crop on the planet. So that's dating back as far as history even extends, back to when, the dawn of history, as we like to refer to it as. Hemp's been around for a lot longer than that, though. This is actually a building material that I'm holding in my hand. We went around the planet to try to find literally the best material in the world, and France is actually where we ended up. And France has actually been building with no prohibition for hundreds of years. Hemp has gone back to the Egyptian times. We know this because these building techniques and these buildings and structures are still standing, or cave systems or other things that they used these techniques in are still here to this day, thousands of years later. This material is a certified construction grade material. We went and brought this material over from France simply to demonstrate to Hawaii, to the lawmakers, to the public, and as well as to the inspectors, building inspectors, that we do have a certified construction material. We have all the MSDN, all the specs, all the data. We're now working, hand in hand with the Hawaiians here, the Hawaiian Kingdom, all the public and the community, to get this crop and other bio-based, plant-based solutions up and on their feet here. And hemp is just one of the many things that locally can be used. As far as building material goes, there's also, you guys may know this, but the state flower is hibiscus. Hibiscus, aka canaf, is another magically hidden crop that's been deleted from history for the last few hundred years, mysteriously, for the reason that it's another solution crop. Hemp, just to let you guys know, if you go back to when the prohibition on... Can you hear me? Okay. When prohibition was started back in 1937, you had Popular Mechanics coming out the year after prohibition, 1938, touting hemp as the next billion-dollar crop with over 25,000 uses and over 5,000 textile uses. Personally, I can only count maybe, 10, 20, 30 textile uses off the top of my head. Back in 1938, there were over 5,000 just for this plant alone. So that was at a time when only 20 to 30% of the usable material could actually be extracted via the technology they had at that time. Now in modern day hemp processing, we're actually extracting over 90% of the usable fiber. We're actually able to process the plant into many different solutions. As far as agricultural solutions go, we're able to take this material, bring it out to a farm, we're able to introduce it with the synergy of microbes, indigenous microbes that are already occurring in the soils. And the microbes, look at the chips of hemp here, the stalk of the industrial hemp plant or cannabis, it's the same. They look at these chips as being like a mansion. Like if you were to take this and inoculate it with microbes and put it out into your farmland, every microbe or every little colony of microbes would get a mansion and get a beautiful little place to live, which is the hemp. And then they would be able to colonize out to the soil and be able to remediate the soil of harmful contaminants, toxins, heavy metals, radiation. It's actually, when you guys hear about hemp being the #1 bioremediating plant on the planet, that means it's able to do jobs such as remove radiation, heavy metals, toxins out of a soil over just a few generations. Remediation is not so much of taking the material and toxin up into the plant as much as it is the root zone of the cannabis plant is actually working in synergy with the microbes in the soil to break down those toxic things and actually remediate the soil permanently of those toxins. For agricultural solutions, we're able to come out, especially here in Puno, we're able to build healthy soil. That's huge for people on Lava Rock. We're able to also come out and work with natural farming techniques to bring out the indigenous microorganisms and reintroduce them. So we're able to take those colonies, those microorganisms, out of kipukas, places out on the lava rock that have basically been avoided by the lava for perhaps hundreds, if not thousands of years. We're able to introduce that synergistically to the hemp here, and we're able to put that into the soil and actually able to boost the soil and able to do what nature would take thousands of years to do, and we're able to do that in just a couple weeks. So that's just one of the many solutions, that's agriculturally speaking. As far as oil soak, you guys may not know this, but the chipped up stalk of the cannabis plant is one of the few things on the entire planet that's known to be an excellent oil soak material. And I know this because we've been in talks over the years, having folks from the oil and gas industry actually come to the hemp industry, talk to us about wanting to inject tens of millions of pounds of hemp hurd, this material, down into their oil and gas wells for an oil soak. And the unique properties of hemp are that on oil or land, you're looking at an extremely absorbent material. For oil soak, it can actually float on water and absorb up to 5 to 6 times its weight in oil, then actually be pressed of the oil. The oil can be reclaimed, reused, and the hemp can be put back out in oil booms or onto the land applications, and it can be reused over and over again. Now, one of the things I learned from talking and listening to these oil and gas reps through the years of them coming to the industry and talking about this, they're not looking for a reusable material. That was what they came and told us. Like, great, it's reusable. We just like the earth friendliness. We like the talks it gives us, the points it gives us. The beauty is I see that as every one of those oil and gas folks that comes to the tree of life for a solution, that spells the end of their industry. It's actually the start of the fall. When they come to the hemp industry and say, hey, we need a solution, as soon as people realize that, oh my God, tens of millions of pounds, so many millions of pounds that would currently break the global supply of hemp, that's what the oil and gas industry is seeking. As soon as the public finds out that the oil and gas industry is using that much hemp to remediate their issues, it's game over. We're talking right now, and this is going back to all the beautiful people here that have spoken before me about the miracles of this plant and why it's so important to human. It's gotten us here. It's going to get us into the future. It's going to heal the issues from the past, bring us into a beautiful green future. And why? It's because this material is actually it's got so many different uses right now. It's absolutely unimaginable. We've got material that this can actually be made into. The latest and greatest is actually carbon nanosheets. So you guys may or may not have heard of graphene. So the folks in the big industries, they're making computer chips, everything now, the latest, greatest technology. It's being revolutionized by a material called graphene that can now be made with hemp 1,000 times cheaper with no mining. So wherever we go, this plant is always going to be there for us. It's been there in the past. It's been the first domesticated agricultural crop on the planet. It's what's fed our people. The seed of the hemp plant has all 21 known amino acids. It's got a protein that's literally a one-off from the blood plasma in your body. We have actually evolved to have this plant. And if you look at Prohibition, they took from us in the 30s what was our means to be sustainable as a people. This was our key to being sustainable prior to Prohibition. We grew to prove that. Back then in the 30s, what is now known as the American Medical Association actually debated Prohibition against the U.S. government on the grounds that they were taking away the most viable source of protein at the worst time of the Great Depression. So you have absolute money-hungry criminals coming after what is our means to be sustainable. This material will literally produce current rates right now at just 0.3% THC, the current U.S. legal limit for THC in hemp. The current low THC hemp, less than 6% would take the entire United States off of fossil fuels. Less than 6% of usable farmland in America. Right now, they're paying farmers to keep almost 25% of the farmland vacant. So when you guys talk about the folks around here that are talking, they're talking about the importance of this plant medicinally. The facts that we've learned in the last few years because of the medical cannabis industry is that in the states that have gone to legalization and full-scale recreation, we've actually found through research that when we lift the U.S. government prohibition THC limit, which is, imagine this, this is not a Ferrari, this is a spaceship. This can do 1,000,000 miles an hour. We know that from 1938, 25,000 uses. The U.S. government has limited farmers since then to less than 1% THC. When we now see the research of lifting the governor off of the spaceship that's going a mile an hour right now, they've got it limited so it'll go as slow as possible. When we naturally allow those THC limits to come back up, 5, 10, 15, 18, 20% THC, we now see that the plant produces 6 to 10 times the amount of usable oil and pulp as their limited, petty little hemp. You know, their industrial hemp is like their medical cannabis out of Mississippi. Anybody that's seen a government's pot, they should not be in charge of growing pot. It's seeds and stems, it's not considered medicine, it's just awful. And this plant, when it's allowed to grow naturally, sunlight to its full potential, you're talking about 6 to 10 times the amount of oil and pulp production. What does that mean? That means that currently, with that limit of less than 1% THC, we're already looking at 4 to 6 times the amount of pulp per acre as trees. Now you're extending that 6 to 10 times. So now you're talking about an absolutely massive amount of pulp coming out per acre to combat the loss of trees and deforestation on the planet. Now, on the other hand, you're also looking at oil production. So I mentioned to you guys less than 6% of the usable farmland converted to hemp in the United States will take us off fossil fuels. When we allow the THC limits to be at their natural, normal levels, okay, no one's ever died from cannabis, fact. When we allow those natural THC levels, we're now looking at less than 1% of the usable farmland in America converted over to hemp would actually take us off fossil fuels. And that's not even mentioning the fact that it can be made into carbon nanosheets now that are revolutionizing the technology side so much that we're talking about being able to charge a car and go 5,000 miles on a single charge that took just minutes to make. So we're talking about everything in the world is going to get so much better as we continue to go back to the plant that got us here, and the plant that's going to help and heal our community. It's going to heal us of so many different physical, mental, emotional, trauma of ages, you name it. Here in the community, my main specialty has been for years as a hemp builder. This, again, is a certified construction grade material. So here in Hawaii, you guys may or may not know, but there has been over 40,000 Hawaiians, true Hawaiians, waiting on a waiting list for the last 98 years. Last year was 97, this year is 98. Last year was the year of the Hawaiian. They were talking about it a lot last year. These folks have been dying waiting for their land, and dying on this waiting list, waiting for their home, for a place to call home. And here in Hawaii, as you guys may or may not know, we have this severe houseless issue. There are so many people that are in need of an actual house, and there's so many people that have a home that their home is rotting from the inside out. We're provided horrible lumber here. We're provided, it's just basically everything's about money on the system here. So, well, anywhere. Hemp provides a home that's rated at a 100-year lifespan. So you're talking about a home that's an earth-friendly. It's actually a carbon-negative building material as well. We're able to take this material, grow it locally. Ideally, it would be grown right next to the job site. That would be the best case. If not, we're going to try to grow it as local as possible. Or we're going to work with other crops that are going to be similar to hemp, that can be or are accepted in the local area here. One of the things with building is you're looking at a home that's got no volatile organic compounds, no chemicals, toxins. It actually is a breathable wall system, meaning here in Hawaii where it's humid, it's hot. It could be even cool or cold or moist up top, up by Volcano, Upper Puna. You're looking at a building material that's going to keep you cool in the lower areas. It's going to keep you warm in the upper areas. It's going to actually take on the humidity and the temperature and slowly transition it to the inside. It's actually looked at, a lot of the home builders and homeowners refer to it as practically having a humidifier in your home. So, people prefer to have a hemp house because of the fact that the humidity is managed so well inside of the home. It's like having a humidifier constantly regulating the humidity and the temperature. You're also going to have a home that's mold, rot, pest resistant, termite proof. You're looking at something that's fireproof as well. It's rated at a 4-hour burn time. When I put this into a wall system, into a hempcrete wall system, I can literally show people at our workshops and events, I can put a blowtorch up to the wall system, no matter how thick it is, and I can set it there and turn it red hot out of the wall. It'll smolder over time, it will not spread. So you have so many folks over the years that have had known someone that's passed away from a home fire, or even firefighters that have come out to the scene to try to help people and had their lives endangered. This is a remedy to that as well. Back to the natural building solutions, we're also working again with hibiscus and canaf. You guys obviously know this is the #1 medical cannabis island in Hawaii. So as much as we would all love to just wave a wand and get hemp here, the processing and acreage and other main numbers just do not make sense here. We also have a very limited photo period, which makes it very challenging. But the main thing about Big Island is also hemp does conflict in certain ways, of course, with cross-pollination, and basically there's a lot of people in the medical cannabis industry that are worried about the cross-pollination of the crops to their medical cannabis. And as a solution to that, we're working hand in hand with the community throughout Hawaii to create solutions that are based not only on the location, but based on the climate zone or microclimate of where you're at. So we have practically every climate zone in the entire world here just on Big Island alone. So again, back to this being the best place in the world to showcase sustainable solutions, this really gives us a chance to get back to what this community was like 250 years ago when it was 100% self-sustaining. We have the ability to go back to that self-sustaining model that the Hawaiians were able to showcase to the world and able to get in sustainable solutions that are not only healthy for the community, but healthy for the people, the planet, everything around us. To segue into something else, we're also doing Holistic Synergy Hawaii. We've started, let's get this amazing man over here, Uncle Sam, thank you. We've started a group called Project Kuleana. And Project Kuleana's mission is to stewardship of our local Puna community from Mauka to Makai. So what we've done is we've stepped up as a community and are continuing to step up as a local community to do beach cleanups, park cleanups, go down, cut up the ghost nets that are laying out along the shoreline, and to be stewards of our local community. One of the things that we're also doing is when we go to build with 100-year building material like hemp, we're always limited by the use of lumber. Of course, we don't want to use any lumber anymore, and we definitely don't want to use alternatives like aluminum or galvanized because of the intense amount of energy and carbon footprint that's had to go on those products. Not to mention, it's all supporting someone in a faraway place in their payroll or whatever. Looking for sustainable solutions locally here. If you guys want to join us, we're doing Project Kuleana every week, every Saturday. We're down along Red Road, or we're here in Puna, and we're stewarding the Aina. We're also cleaning up along the oceans. And we're putting together a group right now that's working with several groups worldwide. Precious Plastic is one of those. Also Conceptos Plásticos out of Colombia. Out of building with this material for the last few years, it always came back in discussion after discussion. It's like, oh my God, we still have to rely on lumber. We still have to rely on this. The weakest link is the wood. And we don't even want to go there because of the forests. If you look at all the forest fires in the West this last year, the forests are gone. I mean, we just had 40 plus years of wood, or forests, I'm sorry, just completely wiped off the planet over a ginormous amount of land on the West Coast. So the time is long over and long past, and we have to create solutions. And that brings us back to the ocean cleanups. So every week we're down along the shoreline, we're cleaning up hundreds and hundreds of pounds of plastics. We're cleaning up ghost nets that we can't even cut and carry off the ocean or off the beach. And it's really sad because we're watching an environmental catastrophe that's so unbelievably huge that it really makes me emotional. Because, when any of us that love this Aina and go down to Kahana and swim with the dolphins and see the whales, see the turtles, have watched the reef suffer and die or bleach over the last 20, 30 years, we have to find solutions to these things called problems. And that brings us to the plastic issue in Hawaii and globally. And we're working with these groups worldwide to get this open source technology here on the island as a hui, as a collective here. Open source technology, no profit driving, motives, any of this agenda. We're here as a community. And we are working to create machines that have already been built. We're going to get them created here on Big Island that'll be able to chip down these plastics and actually melt them and mold them back into what we're hoping will be a structural form of lumber. And that is so revolutionary because we really, when we look at the agricultural output of what the Aina could do here for us, the ocean's given us 1,000,000 times that every month, basically. If you guys go down to South Point, if you get connected to Surf Rider Foundation, Hawaiian Wildlife Fund, you guys will see cleanup sites that are at South Point that no matter what we did, no matter how many people we brought to that beach, we could never make a dent in what's showing up every single day to that shoreline. And when we go down here to Pohoiki, people write into me every week and they go off, they get crazy because they're like, how can this be? How can there be all this trash? This is the newest beach in Hawaii. How can this be? And I'm like, well, just take a walk to the end of the beach. When you go to Pohoiki, what used to be the bay, if you guys remember the bay, or you look at the black sand beach there, go to the very far south end. And where that point sticks out right there, walk the next half a mile. You guys will see, I guarantee you, every single rock you look under will have a piece of plastic or chunks of plastic. You'll see so many big pieces, small pieces, fiberglass. You guys will see ghost nets piled along the shoreline. And, I'm here again as a representative of that silent nation to bring awareness to this because one of our cleanup volunteers told us at the cleanup last month, she said, the saddest part about these ghost nets that we're trying to remove off the beach is that For us to be able to see those ghost nets on the shore, it first killed perhaps hundreds of animals out of the ocean, sank to the bottom of the ocean, then got free and blew in on a storm to the shore. And that to me was so heartbreaking because, you know, when we go out here and we swim with these dolphins and we see this land, you know, we'll be lucky if the next generation or two even gets to see what we get to see. And if we don't think that we have Kuleana responsibility to stand here on this island as just human beings, being lucky enough to be in these beautiful Hawaiian Islands, let alone anywhere on this planet with breath in our lungs and blood in our veins, we are nature. And we as humans have lost connection with the fact that we are not only our nature, but true power is nature. No human has ever been able to stop the force of nature. And we are that. We are that energy, and we are nature. So when we look out and we see people that are trying to take care of the ocean, trying to take care of the land, and trying to step up and own what's their kuleana, their responsibility, you know, they are nature. We are nature itself. We are protecting ourselves because we share a common destiny with every living thing around us. And if we think that we're going to be here by ourselves, alone on this planet after everything's gone, it's not going to happen. So I really welcome you guys to do what you can, to get involved, to please get on YouTube, do as much as you can to learn about the ocean plastic issues, to learn about natural building and how we can create long-term housing for our people with practically no money. And I guarantee you, if we get together as a community, we can get rid of the cost completely because we have 1,000,001 plants around here that will create the same exact stuff that I'm holding right here in my hand. We don't need to import it, but we have proof right here. Hemp has opened the eyes of the people, thank God, to what can be done in the plant-based world. And you know, they used to call a factory, you guys may have heard of the term for a factory called a plant. Oh yeah, you know, so-and-so works down at the plant. It's because factories used to work with plants. They used to work with plant-based materials. So, you know, it's kind of one of those things of the history of where this comes from. The fact that our country, well, not our country, I'm sorry, we're in the Hawaiian Kingdom, but the Hawaiians and the United States have a very deep, rich history with this plant. The United States, I guarantee you, wouldn't be here. And if you look at the War of 1812, 1813, the White House was actually burned down because of this plant. Because the U.S. soldiers marched up into Canada, looted the British towns, burned their towns down, but what did they loot their towns of? Hemp. They took hemp. Napoleon fought wars over hemp. So this is our means to be sustainable, and as soon as we get this plant moving back into the hands of the people, that's going to be a beautiful day for all of civilization because it was men of power and greed that took it away in the first place. And you've seen how their world has played out over the last 80 years. And it's not looking too good for anybody these days based on that. So we have kuleana, responsibility to go ahead and malama as much as possible, to go ahead and do whatever we can personally and as a community to create solutions and to come together to, you know, I'm not here telling you I'm the solution or this is the solution or anything. We all have a gift that we were brought here to offer this world in this time. And it's our job to find out what that gift is and then give that gift away every single day. So thank you guys so much. If you guys want to learn more, track me down. I'll be floating around the event and I'll be happy to give you guys cards and talk to you. And I look forward to you guys. There's a huge build project going on. Hemp House build project that will be happening in June up in Mountain View. That's one of many projects that's happening right this year. If you guys are interested in education on that, that'll include a intro to hempcrete class. That'll include a 3-day advanced workshop. You guys are welcome to come out and pick any one of the 3 days to come out for a 1-day workshop as well if you want to do that. We're also going to have a 3-week course, an advanced course on finishing. So for those that have soil on Hamakua Coast, for those that are out on the black ground, regardless of where you're at, we're able to actually create solutions to build your home using those materials. To take the clay-rich soil of Hamakua, mix it in with different materials and make an earthen plaster that's going to breathe and be healthy for your home. So you guys, I look forward to connecting with every one of you at our cleanup events, at our workshops, events, and look forward to seeing you guys, like all of you, come out and offer your gift to humanity. So blessings, aloha.
I'm thankful to be invited. Thank you guys and for putting this on. I thought I'd talk a little bit about the political situation statewide regarding cannabis laws and maybe a few ideas that I have about the overall prohibition. And I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have. This year, it was possible we might have made a lot of progress with legalization this year. There were some folks who thought this might be the year. And it could have been. A lot of things have fallen into place, but it turned out to not have been the year. The only progress we made on state laws, there was 2 bills. One bill clarifies that if you're a licensed medical user, you can't lose your job for failing a cannabis drug test. And it's a protection that we needed. It's a medium-sized step. And it also provides for the ability to transport cannabis for testing and certain other reasons that are allowed within the medical license. It does a couple other things I'm going to try to remember. The other bill that is passing so far is a decriminalization bill, which is great. This is a small step. The problem with it is it decriminalizes amounts under 3 grams, which is a fairly small amount. It means if you're caught with a couple of joints, it's a $30 fine. It's no longer a misdemeanor. You can't go to jail for it. One good part about that bill is that I think there's an intention to look backwards at anyone who may have been convicted for such possession in the past and clear their record. So those are 2, to me, small steps. There's a few steps we may have to do with licensing of the medical dispensaries as well, mostly on a somewhat technical level. Every year I introduce a bill asking that the counties be allowed to regulate cannabis, because I'm quite certain that Big Island, Maui, and Kauai would vote to legalize it or decriminalize it if we had the opportunity to do so. I mean, I think it's been about 20 years since we passed that Peaceful Sky ordinance that said cannabis should be the lowest law enforcement priority. I think it passed with about 60% of the vote, and that was almost 20 years ago. So it's clear that the attitude on all the outer islands is much more liberal as far as this than it is on Oahu. But the forces that be on Oahu still control our state governments. And, my bill was to say to them, okay, you guys aren't ready to do this, but can you just give us folks out in the colonies a little bit of freedom to regulate ourselves? And of course that's not going to happen easily because no one wants to give up the tax revenue for it. I mean, when they do finally legalize it, the tax revenue is going to be a big motivating factor for some of the folks that will allow that to happen. They don't want to give up control in general. I will continue to push that. To me, it's a reasonable middle step considering most of the people in this state. We don't have statewide referendum. We don't have the ability to collect signatures and change a law statewide. We do have it on the county level. That's why we've seen some progressive initiatives in that regard. We don't have that on the state level. I believe if we had it, then we could do things like legalizing cannabis because a majority of our population supports it. We could do other things like, raise the minimum wage. But we don't. It's another thing that the powers that be on Oahu they don't want to relinquish that power. Every year I introduce a bill for statewide initiative and it doesn't get a hearing. So power is still consolidated and carefully controlled over there. So we're limited to making baby steps, in my opinion. The attitude is changing though. over there in the legislature. It wasn't too many years ago that if you mentioned anything about cannabis or medical marijuana, the next thing was snickering and some joke about pot. And I think we're finally getting past that because there's wide recognition of the legitimate medical uses of cannabis. And I think there's gradual recognition about the legitimacy of recreational use of it. When I look around, we're Hawaii. Let's look at our neighbors towards the Americas. Alaska, Canada, Washington, Oregon, California, and Mexico have all legalized it at this point. All of our neighbors. So we're the outliers here. It's not like we need to be bold and be in the lead. We just need to follow the crowd at this point. We're still hesitant to do that. Sometimes people say that they're afraid of the federal situation where the legality is still questionable and we don't want to stick our head out. I don't see how we're sticking our head out if California and Alaska, have already done it without any big problems. Another area where we are making some progress is in industrial hemp and the ability to grow hemp. And I think we're going to make leaps and bounds in the next couple of years. In the last year, we have legitimized the potential hemp industry. And that includes, food and fiber, but it also includes the very important CBD crops that can be grown in non-THC varieties that would fall under the industrial hemp laws. And this year, dozens of people are getting a hemp license to begin to grow hemp. And I think we will finally see a hemp industry in our state. A couple of years ago, I went on vacation, and from now on, I'm only going to blue states where cannabis is legal. I'm sure that I'm one of millions of people around the country that do this. So, maybe one day Hawaii will join that group. But I went to Colorado and I got to meet someone who owned a hemp company there. And she took me to see her fields, some of her agricultural fields. So we were standing, there's a 25-acre field of hemp. It was CBD hemp. It was small, dense, kush-looking plants. I couldn't believe it was hemp because it's not what I thought of. Next door there's a 25-acre field of corn. There's no giant fence around it because it's, you can't really steal a plant and make any money with it. But she pointed to this 25 acres and says, that's $1 million worth of CBD hemp right there. I've got 4 of those fields. And I think that's a little $40,000 an acre, if my arithmetic's correct. We could use some $40,000 an acre crops here. Ask any farmer if they could use a half acre or an acre of that kind of crop. And it's got tremendous economic potential as well as environmental potential. I thought I'd briefly touch on, forgive me for having just arrived, I'm not sure if I'm repeating things, but sometimes I reflect on the history of cannabis prohibition and what it has really cost us. The reason I'm in politics is because I'm an environmentalist and I'm tremendously concerned about the condition of our planet. I didn't really put all these pieces together until fairly recently, but for a long time, marijuana was illegal because they didn't want industrial hemp to take over as an economic crop. In 1937, the push to make cannabis illegal. Marijuana was the red herring. Look at the people using it. Look what's happening to your daughters. But the money behind it was from the timber and the oil industries, because they didn't want the competition that hemp could provide to those industries. And then in the Nixon era, of course, we refocused on the marijuana side of cannabis as a tool to declare war on certain social segments, certain political and ethnic segments of our society. So it's used for those were the reasons behind it. I think we're all aware of the cost of the social war. All the people who have been imprisoned or prosecuted, all the people that have wasted time in prison and had their lives destroyed. I think we're fairly aware of that. Sometimes I don't hear anyone talk about the environmental consequences of hemp prohibition, because let's think about that. We could have not been cutting down all of our forests for 70 years. We could have not been burning oil for 70 years. Now think about climate change. Think about the greatest crisis we've all ever faced. And the role that hemp prohibition played in that. So this is no small issue. The harm that this has caused is profound. It's profound environmentally, financially, and socially. And today, we all, at the legislature, we like to wring our hands and worry about the opioid crisis. And let's think about the harm that cannabis prohibition has caused to pharmaceutical use in our country. Some of the states that have legalized cannabis have seen a 25% reduction in opioid prescriptions and deaths. We're trying so hard to make little dents in it, and no one ever talks about this. There's nothing we're talking about that would reduce it 25%. And I find it so ironic as they've licensed some of the dispensaries, and I was one of the ones that advocated for allowing sunshine, this radical idea of allowing them to be grown under natural light. And maybe we don't need 20-foot walls, and maybe we don't need, armored car type security all the way. All these things that would drive the cost up so much that, the black market will continue to look better. But the fact is that some of the rules we have put on these dispensaries, what are you going to do with the excess product? What are you going to do with your record keeping? How long are you going to keep the records? Who can work in your store? These rules are much, much more strict than someone handing out Vicodin and fentanyl and heroin in a pharmacy. It's much, much stricter. And what are we afraid of? It's just insane that there's this atmosphere of fear around cannabis. It doesn't apply to heroin, So I think that when it once was the timber industry and the oil industry keeping it illegal, I do believe that today it's the pharmaceutical industry keeping it illegal. And they want to make sure they get their patents and their control over it, but we all have heard stories of people going off of pharmaceutical drugs because of the availability of medical cannabis. I myself had a constituent come to me one of my first years. He wrote to me and said, I'm a veteran, I recently moved to this area, I have a medical license. I can't always find a supplier. And can you help me? So I went to visit him. I just wanted to see if he was for real before I recommended where he might go to find a supplier. So I stopped and visited his house. He was out doing yard work at Paradise Park. He showed me his license. He's a guy about my age, And then he pulled out of his pocket he said, this is what I have to take when I can't find the cannabis medicine. And forgive me if I have it wrong, I think it was 2 opiates. I'm forgetting the other name. One was Vicodin and one was OxyContin. He says, this is what I have to take when I can't find it. I hate this stuff. If I can find a medical marijuana, I stop taking it. I don't need it for my pain. So you think the pharmaceutical industry is paying attention? And do you think the pharmaceutical industry is a trustworthy industry? They actually spend more money lobbying Congress and state legislatures than the oil and the gun industries combined. Think about that. What are they doing? What are they doing in our halls of our Congress if they're actually selling medicine? They're also the #1 advertiser on any TV station. That's a lot of influence. I'm not against the pharmaceutical industry. I don't think we should be ruled by them, though. But I think we need to recognize those influences when we wonder why we can't make progress politically on it. I do think the time is soon. I continue to be optimistic. It's very possible we could make major progress next year, but I'm here to report this year just baby steps. And the attitudes are evolving, but the laws haven't really evolved very much yet. And so that said, I'm so happy to see this event. Thank you for everybody that put it together. I'm playing with one of the bands later on, so I'll be sticking around for a while. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there's time for that. Sarah, a couple questions? Happy to answer a question, yes. I try to answer it.
What can we do for you when you have another initiative that what is it that you'd like?
Thank you for asking. I says, what can she do for us for me to support our initiatives? Well, if you can connect with either my website or the Senate office, we have an email list where we send out emails on any subject that you tell us you're interested in. If you say you want to be on an email list for cannabis-related initiatives, we'll send you emails, and what we'll do is notify you when it's time to submit testimony, when there's a bill alive, and some more voices would help. You know, you don't need to convince me, so we need to convince all the other reps and senators. And some, you know, even though you're in my district, I assume it is useful to hear. People want to hear from voices from around the state, I think. So that's one way we can use help, is submitting testimony and making some noise. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Are there any legislators in our state who have medical marijuana licenses? I forget the right word.
Are there any legislators that have medical marijuana licenses? Not to my knowledge.
In other words, can you get elected again and have one?
I think so. I think that's possible. You know, I mean, there's a few of us legislators that are known to be pro-cannabis, you know, so it sort of depends on where your district. It's easy to be pro-cannabis when you're from Pune. You know, it's harder maybe if you're from Eva Beach. So, yeah, I mean, I could be on record and still get reelected, I think. And there are a couple of people who aren't shy about the fact that I don't know of any that have a medical license. It might be in there just being private about it. I should mention one of my former colleagues who just sort of retired last year. His name is Will Espero, and he's launching today something called Cannabis TV, or Hawaii Cannabis TV. And he will be putting out an episode once a week or periodically. The first episode will be today. I'm one of the guests on it. He was a state senator for many years, and he's sort of devoted his professional life now to working on this issue. So there are some folks who aren't too shy about it. I'm lucky I'm from Pune. You know, if I was from Eva Beach or Pearl City, I probably wouldn't be here talking in cannabis anymore. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, thank you all so much. We'll be back to play some music. Mahalo.